Hi, welcome to Ammosmith.com. Today we're going into some more advanced swaging, and what we're going to be doing is taking some brass tubing that you can get at the hobby store, and we're going to use a cast bullet. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a swaged 9mm jacketed hollow point. These particular hollow points are going to weigh right around 142 grains. It's very simple to do. It's a little bit easier than the 40 caliber one, and it produces an extremely high quality bullet. I just want to give you a close up before we get started. What we end up doing is cutting some brass tubing, and we're going to trim it to within 0.001 inch tolerances, which is pretty tight. We're going to use a cast bullet out of near pure lead, and what we're going to end up with is a nice jacketed hollow point with a semi-closed base on it. This is not very difficult to do. If you know how to reload, you can make these. It's real simple. In fact, you don't even have to cast your own bullets if you don't want to. You can probably buy pre-cast pure lead bullets and go that way, but this saves you money. So let me go ahead and show you some of the tools that we're going to use. And I want to show you a tool that I modified for swaging that's worked out really great for me. The first thing that I need to point out is the type of tubing that we're using. We're using 11/32 inch tubing, or 8.73 millimeter, with a wall thickness of 0.014 inches. It's nice and thin. It's thinner than a standard jacket would be. So when you make these bullets, at the weight that I'm making them in, at between 142 and 150 grains, depending on what core I use, they will expand at those lower velocities that the 9mm push them at. Depending on where you get the tubing, it can run anywhere from $3 a stick for a 3-foot stick on up, and you can get it a lot cheaper online. I've seen them as cheap as about $1.80 per 3-foot stick, and this is also available in copper. The hobby store near me doesn't have it in copper, but I will be getting some copper tubing. I want to talk to you about cores for a second. This is a 311 inch core, or a 30 caliber core. This is basically for like a 32 Smith & Wesson or a 3220, and you want to use a 30 caliber or 300 inch or 311 inch, doesn't matter, core. That way it fits into the jacket blank itself. We're going to go through the process of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a gang mold, a 6 cavity mold in 93 grain, which will give me almost exactly 115 grain bullet. This particular bullet here weighs about 120 grains, and with the jacket it turns out to be about 142 to 143 grains. I'm getting about a plus or minus 1 grain tolerance on these things. The dies we're using are from CH4D out of Ohio. These are great dies, and they work on your standard reloading press. A full set of dies are going to cost you about $130. The only thing is you need to get a couple extra parts, and the one part you're definitely going to need is the 30 caliber swage punch from them in order for this to be a recessed jacketed hollow point, and we'll show you how that works later. What I'm using to cut the tubing is this Proxxon chop saw. This thing is very precise. It's a lot better than the Harbor Freight one that I had, and the vise opens up in both directions. It holds the stock level, so you don't have any angled cuts when you're cutting your tubing. I already got it set up, and what I need to explain to you is the distance when you set this up is going to be different depending on the weight of the bullet you're making. The heavier the bullet, the longer the jacket. When you're prototyping, go ahead and figure in about 5 or so bullets that you're going to have to kind of mess with in order to get everything set up to where you want it, and that way you can play around with the overall length on your jacket. And depending on the type of hollow point that you want, whether you're using a gas check in order to make an encapsulated hollow point, or if you're using enough jacket to curl the jacket into the hollow point, is going to depend on how long you make your jacket. Okay, we got the stock in here, what you want to do is bring the guard down. This is already preset to save us time. And take your vise, loosen it a little bit, push the stock up against the stopper, and pull this out the way. If you don't pull the stop out of the way, it'll kick the jacket blank, it'll bounce it off the bottom of the machine or on top of the machine against the whatever's behind it and dent it. And it's kind of a pain to true up after that. So just make sure this is tight. If you don't make sure this is tight, this will spin and it'll give you all kinds of crazy cuts. All right, here we go. All right, here's the first blank. You see there's a little burr on there, and that's not a big deal. And I'll show you how we deal with that. I made a tool that takes care of that. Drop the guard down, or the stopper, pull out the way. You can actually go a lot faster in this. It depends on you. Once you get to a point where you know how your saw works, and I know how this particular saw works, I can go pretty quick. And go ahead and cut your jackets and set them aside so you can start truing them up. All right, here's what we're going to be using to true up these jackets. We're going to be using a Redding case trimmer, a deburring tool, a pair of Klein tools. Is the number 1010 tool, and I use this for getting the burrs off, and this part here that I put on here is for when I'm cutting cores when I'm using lead wire. I just thought this up and actually turned out pretty well. And a set of calipers so we can be as exacting as we can. So let me go ahead and set the trimmer up, and then I'm going to show you how the Klein tool works, and then we'll be all set. Here's the jacket blank with that burr on there. Watch out, that burr is pretty sharp. So what you want to do is take your Klein tool like this, take the flat portion right here, get it flat like this against the blade to where it catches that burr and cuts it off nice and flat. Do that to all your cases in your jacket blanks. Like this guy right here, he's got a pretty nasty burr on there. Nice and flat. Once you put it against this flat part right here, you're going to get nice. You're going to be able to get rid of the burr without taking off any excess material. And the trimmer will smoothen out the rest. So I already got the trimmer set up, so let's go ahead and get that going. The nice thing about the Redding tool is it has this universal shell holder thing on here. And what I do is I just take the jacket blank, and this works just as well with 40 caliber. And you take this jacket blank and you put it on here, and whatever mandrel you're going to be using, go ahead and use. And then boom, you're done. Let's go ahead and measure it. First of all, before we measure it, take your deburring tool, clean it out. Right at 700. Take the next one. Burr it inside and out, both sides. Let's measure it. Right at 700. We got great tolerances on these. That means they're going to weigh exactly the same. I'm going to do a few more, and then I'm going to show you how to seat the cores. Alright, here are the two swage punches we got. This is the 9mm one, and this is the 30 caliber one. The 9mm one will not allow us to seat the core recessed into the jacket, where the 30 caliber one will allow us to do exactly that. And this is what you want, unless you want an exposed soft point. Now the 9mm dies, I've made bullets as heavy as 250 grains for my 9x57 Mauser, but that's another video. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the core and the jacket, and it's going to go into the die, and it's going to compress, and it's going to widen that out, and it's going to fill this completely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the press up in order to do this, and I'm going to show you how I do it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the 30 caliber swage punch in, and then the core seat die. We're just using our RCBS press. You can use any decent reloading press. The Lee Classic Cast is good, but don't use their aluminum press. It's too light for this kind of work. We're going to be using Redding's Imperial Sizing Wax. It works really nicely. Now the thing you got to remember is you don't want any lubricant on the core itself. It'll swage in there just fine, but there'll be a thin film between the jacket and the core, which will make the core shift when you fire it, and it'll throw your accuracy off. What you want to do is take your core, you can put it in point up, which is what I do, and a little bit of this on your jacket, and you're all set. I'm going to change the angle of the camera because I want to show you exactly what happens and some of the pitfalls that you can run into during this operation. Here's one of the pitfalls you're going to run into. Some of the 30 caliber bullets that I use are usually too small. And what will happen is when you take your jacket, it'll slide over the top and go like that. And when that happens, it won't seat the core where you want it. So what you're going to do is take it up to your die and just give it a little nudge. Why not just a tiny bit. And you take it and you invert it, just like that. And what this will do is this core will keep the jacket in place and make it bottom out into the die. And then the core will be shifted up while maintaining the position of the jacket, widening out the core and seating it. And we're going to actually have to seat it twice in order to form the base. And I'll show you how to form the base. So let me go ahead and get this to where it'll seat. We use our mallet to tap it out. It's almost there. If you look at the base, you'll see where it's widened out, but it's not exactly where you want it. Give a little bit more of a turn there. You don't want to exert too much pressure on here where you're going to deform your swage punch. But once the jacket and core separate from the core punch, you're about where you want it. Maybe just a little bit more. If you look at it in the light, you can see a slight shoulder on it. That's where the core expanded out, and it took that tubing and made it exactly 0.355 inch, which is the diameter you want. And now what we got, I'm going to seat a couple more, and then we're going to go ahead and start forming the base. Same thing with this guy. So you got to kind of coax it in there a little bit. It's important that you use the softest lead you can get. Wheel weights is about as heavy as you want, or as hard as you want. Anything else is going to be a little too much. So a little bit of lubricant. keep it separated from the core. You see how that wants to just kind of bust through there like that? Let me show what happens. Now if we would have swaged that all the way, we would have had a problem. It shouldn't take a huge amount of force to tap these out. I'm going to just throw that on and just show you what I'm doing. Almost looks like a bullet, right? If you do a little too much, sometimes you can get a little lead ring coming down here. I didn't that time. And that means when you get like a lead ring around here, that tells you you're shaving your cores. Alright, so we got 4 cores. What we're going to do now is we're going to switch to the point forming die. Then we're going to go back to the core seat die, and we're going to use the core swage in order to round out and complete that portion of the base closing. Then we're going to reseat the core by taking the core, once it's pointed over, from here we're going to reseat it to this end, and it'll make sense once we do it. We're going to take the 9mm swage punch, put it in the ram, and bring the point forming die, whether it's a hollow point or a soft point, doesn't make any difference. We're going to go like this. What we're doing is we're going to start putting a point on here, and I got to do it quite a bit more. Now you can bring this down as much as you want, but you want to have a decent base so you don't have a core separation when you fire it. You don't want the core shooting out the point of the bullet and leaving the jacket somewhere stuck in your barrel. Go a little more. Let me back this hollow pointer off a little bit. All this is done by feel. So we have it here like that. We can make it a little smaller. I'm going to get the hammer. And what we're going to do once we get through with this, once you get a rhythm down, this goes pretty fast. You could probably make, if you do a production line method, cut all your jackets, trim them, true them, you could probably make 200 or 300 an hour. All right, we got the basic point on here. Now we're going to switch back to the core seat die. This will be the last time we'll be using this die, but we're going to have to do this 2 more times. I know it's quite a few steps to do this, but when you're done, you're going to get a very high quality bullet, as good, if not better, than what the factories produce. Now you see this concave punch here. This is the core swage punch for the 9mm. We're going to take this, put a little bit of lube around here, just on that point area right there. We're going to put it, finger's a little sticky, like that. Back it up a little bit. Once you figure out where you need it, the adjustments are easy. You need a rubber mallet to do this too. Now we can see that the base is starting to close over on it. You might want to do this just a tiny bit more. There, that's more like it. We can see that we're starting to get it to close over real nice. Now that the die is adjusted where we want it, we just lock everything into place and just repeat this step. We got to this point where we had the base pretty much where it's going to stay from this point on, and we're going to take it and we're going to push this core back down to this end of the bullet. What this will do, it'll square it off and make it into our actual base, and then we can point it. So let's go ahead and switch out the punch back to the 30 caliber Swaged punch, and we'll be ready to go. We're going to replace this punch with the 30 caliber punch. We're going to get ready to take these bolts we got. Now we go up this way, just like that. You're going to keep adjusting your die down until you get some decent resistance, where the cam over is a little difficult but not impossible to achieve. If you over pressurize this, what you can do is swell the Swaged punch or bulge the die, which is a really bad thing. There. There we have it. Maybe just a little more pressure on this thing. So as you look at it now, we see it's pretty squared off. It's still a little rounded, but that's going to come out during the point forming. That's considered the high pressure die. Now the bullet in the middle is one where we basically formed the radius for us to make the base. If you want to, you can use 223 brass. Cut it off, cut the neck off, leave the shoulder, and cut whatever length you need, and that shoulder will become your base. But here we're using brass tubing. And here are the two other ones. There's another one here, but here's your base is formed. Now all we have to do is go ahead and go to the point forming operation, and it's going to be the last operation in the making of this bullet. So make a note here. On the point forming die, you have two options. You have this one here, which is a hollow point, and you have the flat face-off one for soft points. Today we're going to be making hollow points, and later on I'm going to show you how to make soft points, and we're going to be getting into using gas checks and partitions later on down the road. From here we're going to go ahead and switch to the point forming die for 9mm and a 9mm Swaged punch. This is where we're going to finish the bullet. A little bit of lube. And when we talk about recess, you can see here that the core is seated beneath the mouth of the jacket. As we go up into the die, it'll force it down. As we force it down, and we just started the taper on the point here, it'll start to move the lead forward as well. It'll start reducing the space. You can see the lead starting to move to the top. We're going to get to the point here where we're going to start adding the hollow point feature to the bullet. But I want to get the ogive where I want it first. I want that shoulder of the bullet to be exactly where I want it. Just a tiny, tiny bit more. There. Okay, it's almost there. Now we're going to start running the hollow pointer down. That's going to expand that lead out. It's going to fill the rest of the jacket. And I will need my mallet. A little more on the hollow point side here. Take a good look at that there. A little more on the hollow point. Feels about right. If the bullet gets stuck like it is, all you got to do is take it, pull it up, tap it out. That's exactly where I want it. The first one is the most difficult. If you're having problems with the hollow point sticking to it, just take a little bit of lube and run it on the base of that hollow pointer. And that'll help reduce that bullet. Make sure all your settings are done once you made your final adjustment. Whoops, hit the light. Hit it again. Bad James. Okay, we got 3 completed bullets. And let's take a look at these 3 bullets we just made next to the one that we haven't formed the point on, and then we'll go ahead and get some nice close-ups. Alright, here's our finished bullets. To the left and to the right. And in the center we see where the core is recessed beneath the mouth of the jacket, and our finished hollow points. These things are really nice. They fly really straight too. So let's go ahead and flip one over and look at the base. There's the base, semi-closed. If you want to, you can add a gas check. If you're going to use a gas check, use a 30 caliber gas check, but we're going to do that in another video. We're going to show you how to make a fully encapsulated bullet. And those are good for you guys who are shooting at indoor ranges that require a fully encapsulated bullet. And most of them will let you in, some won't. That just depends on who you're dealing with. Let's go put them on a scale. We have our 4 bullets we just swaged. Let's put them through their quality control test here on weight. I got it 143 grains. Not bad. Next one. Real close. That one's a little heavier. He's about a grain heavier. When you think about it, if you're a grain heavier, you're less than 1% in tolerance. you weigh your components ahead of time, which I didn't do here, this is just for instructional purposes, you can get them within 1/10 of a grain, no problem. When you're done putting them together, you can go ahead and load them. Since these are 142 grains and they have kind of a long bearing surface, I use 147 grain load data for it. And they shoot extremely accurately out of my Glock. The nice thing about these, you can shoot them in your Glock, you can shoot them out of your 1911. You can use copper, you can use brass, and I'm going to try aluminum. The aluminum I'm going to be using is going to have a Teflon coating on them, and which will reduce the risk of any abrasion from the aluminum oxide that forms on the aluminum. Thanks for watching.